No problem. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. Gonna do really excited for this conversation. Gonna talk to Jared Bauer from the famous Wisecrack channel, of course. Really talk about philosophy and movies and TV shows and science fiction, and and all kinds of stuff like that. And we're gonna do another one of my philosophical deep dives, and we're gonna talk about all this kind of stuff that people are talking about today, in terms of things like critical race theory, critical theory, the Frankfurt School, postmodernism, public intellectuals like James Lindsay and Helen Pluckrose and Jordan Peterson and the intellectual dark web, and how people are like politicizing these sorts of issues on opposite sides of the spectrum, to the point that political tribalism in general can escalate to political violence. And I think I just like to have just kind of get to the similarities and differences between our views, because I think we have some differences of opinion in terms of like wokeness, and whether like critical theory or postmodernism are more to blame for it, and that sort of thing. So yeah, like I said, I appreciate you talking with me, man. And I always like having really like deep dive philosophical conversations. And like I said, a Wisecrack is a really cool channel for exploring like philosophy through popular culture. And I haven't seen you have like just kind of like more straight philosophical conversations like this before. And I know sorry, I don't mean to ramble on and on, but yeah, I guess to start off with, do you want to say a little bit about like how your situation has changed for people who don't know about that, and then just kind of start off with your general opinion about the way things like critical race theory seem to be perceived in like the media and social media and whatnot?
Okay, sure. I will try to make it brief, because all of those things are very nuanced things. All right.
For sure.
For those of you who are familiar with the Wisecrack channel, I created that in 2013, and I built it all the way up to 2019 or 2020. Really, I left in 2020, and I decided, for various reasons, because, to be honest, and this could be a whole nother conversation, as a business, the digital media business was kind of a bubble that burst, and the Wisecrack business model was based on it not bursting. And so I ended up moving on, and there's just not a lot of investment going into digital media content anymore. So I decided, and really the one thing that I learned at Wisecrack was that in order to really get creative freedom, it helps when you're in an industry that makes a lot of money. I mean, the amount of money, like I always point to, I don't know if you're a gamer, but like The Last of Us Part 2 it's insane how expensive that game was, and how avant-garde it is. Whether you love it or hate it, I don't love it, but I love the fact that so much money was able to be spent on what was very much an avant-garde swing for the fences. So it's a long way of saying that that's why I've pivoted towards gaming, and now I live in Finland. Being locked up in LA in lockdown for a long time was really not fun, and so the opportunity to travel and live abroad, which is something I always wanted to do, seemed very appealing. And also, Finland, from what I had heard and from what I've experienced so far, is not a shithole country. So I was like, let's do it.
That's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as far as critical race theory and stuff like that, so let me just say that the fundamental philosophy, like if we were to say that Kimberly Crenshaw is like the Chuck Berry of critical race theory, I agree with the basic notion that in order to really understand how, sorry, it's still kind of early for me, in order to understand how discrimination can affect people's liberties, people's legal liberties, as well as just people's opportunities, that these things should be viewed in an intersectional manner. I agree with that. However, I think that we live in a time where people, and you nailed it on the head, you already said it, tribalism. People will kind of latch on to ideas that they haven't either fully thought about or don't entirely understand, because they just know that their tribe is aligned with this idea, which means that it must be correct. So therefore, people end up promoting very stupid things, like, in my opinion, and I think we probably agree on this, like teaching critical race theory in anything less than college, I think is dumb. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like that's I mean, it's playing with fire. It's a
Yeah,
dangerous
I
game to
agree.
play. So, I mean,
I
I'm
think
all for teaching it in college.
it
And
depends
again,
on it depends on what people mean by it too, because like you were saying there, people kind of well, like, and as I was thinking too, like people can like on one side of the spectrum, like the right wing kind of like strawmans of it can be like they're trying to teach people communism and that all white people are evil and to hate America and shit. And then if you go to the like the complete opposite end of the spectrum of like super far left people, they're kind of like confirming that sort of thing too. So like to me it seems like neither the people who are like super pro in favor of it or the people who are super against it, like in terms of like SJW activists or whatever you want to call those people, it doesn't seem like either of those sort of crowds have actually even read that much of what they're talking about.
and from what we've discussed over Instagram, it seems like you've read much more than me. You said you read that whole book that was edited by the ex Harvard guy who was in The Matrix Reloaded. I'm forgetting his name.
Oh,
um,
are you Cornell West?
Cornel West, right? Isn't that what you said? You read like an intro to critical race theory book or something?
Yeah, I didn't remember Cornell West being one of the editors, but I did read an intro to
Or maybe we're
critical
thinking.
race theory. Yeah,
Oh, maybe we're thinking of a different book then.
yeah,
So
but
anyway, you're probably much more educated in it than I am. I really only read the Crenshaw book, or I'm sorry, the Crenshaw essay, and but to be honest, most people, if you were to look at like a graph of the amount of people who feel passionate about critical race theory, I still think I've read more than 99% of them. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Yeah, yeah,
And you've read more than 99.9% of them.
yeah. I guess so. That's kind of sad.
Yeah. But yeah, so and another thing is that look, my overall philosophy about this culture war is it's not my goal for one side to win.
Oh yeah,
I
I
don't see
agree
how that's a
totally.
good thing. And so one of the like if I were to have a philosophy, it would be post-labelism, like an incredulity towards labels, meaning that, if I just don't find a lot of value in labeling a specific argument as conservative or even certain figures as conservative. Like, it's really important. I try as hard as I can to just evaluate an idea not based on whose mouth it comes out of or whose camp it might fall into, because then I think you can fall into a trap where people kind of curate their opinions to where it falls into the appropriate category, and then that just reinforces this tribalism. So I'm always trying to, so for example, like you mentioned the intellectual dark web. Ben Shapiro is a person that I don't particularly like because I think that he is overly sensational with his content. He likes to really push further into this divisiveness in order for his business to grow, in order to get clicks. However, that doesn't mean that whenever that there have been a handful of times where he says things that I agree with. And I don't have a problem admitting that, because, whether it's the saying that even a broken clock is right twice a day, but it just isn't, like, the only way that we're going to get a diehard Ben Shapiro supporter to see us as even human is if we're able to at least, be on their level and see him as human, and see, the person, that this hypothetical person is human. So
For sure.
that's
Yeah.
that's I'm always trying to, like, challenge myself not to stop thinking critically because of a particular label or, of a particular tribe that a person stands for. And I try to read, like, for example, after the James Lindsay book that I read that I think started off our conversation, I'm now reading The Divide by Jason Hickel. Have you read that?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
So that's the book that's basically the big. Are you a big? I'm guessing here, but are you a big critic of Pinker, Steven
Like
Pinker?
white. No, I wouldn't say I'm a big critic. I would say I agree with most of his thesis in like Better Angels of Our Nature, for example, that things have gotten significantly better throughout the 20th century, and we're in like one of the most peaceful and prosperous times in human history. I know a lot of people have criticized him on that, and I agree with some of their criticisms, but I think his overall message in terms of that is correct, if that's what you're talking about.
Well, I was more specifically talking about his newer book, Enlightenment Now. I don't know if you
Oh, okay. I haven't
read that one.
read that. I haven't read that one. I heard that it kind of like pushes forward his thesis in Better Angels of Our Nature more, but it is what were you referring to in terms of that?
Okay, so this Hickel book is basically the book that is proves how wrong he is about how,
Oh, okay.
or proves. I mean,
Ostensibly proves.
ostensibly proves, or it gives the argument. And whenever people are critical of Pinker's book and the argument that things are getting generally better, or that poverty is less than it was, 100 years ago or whatever, this is usually the research that they point to. So, point being, it's a very left-wing book, and he's a very left-wing figure, and I'm just trying to be as balanced as possible. I don't have an
Oh, yeah,
agenda
yeah.
other than I see my country being torn apart, and I also see the creativity and media landscape of Hollywood turning into garbage because of basically just fear and cowardice of saying anything that might offend. And so, I mean, that's really my stake in it. It's just that I don't want to give up on my home country because I love America, and I don't feel ashamed saying that, even though I have a cousin who's an American and like ghosted me for 2 weeks just for saying that I love America. I mean, it's just like stupid shit like that is really upsets me.
Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, I think it sounds like we have actually really similar mindsets and similar experiences even too, because like for example, with what you were saying about Ben Shapiro, I'm not a fan of him either, but I also am just as annoyed by like people who go around saying like all Republicans are evil and racist and shit like that, as I am at like Republicans or conservatives saying progressives are all communists and they all hate people, or whatever shit like that we're talking about. And also like, well, and I like trying to avoid labels too, and kind of like explore different perspectives on different issues. Like I try to read different types of political opinions. Oh yeah, that's the oh yeah, actually my friend commented a few times here. I think I like this one. He said this post-labelism sounds very postmodern, and I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it's like yeah, it's very similar, right?
Yeah,
but really, I
and
mean it as just like a disposition towards just not to say that labels are all meaningless, but just like
yeah,
an effort to be constantly critical
yeah.
of
Well,
your
actually,
use of
that's
labels.
that like exactly is really actually more of a postmodern mindset. Like post-labelism in that sense, to my understanding, would just mean that we can still have labels and they can have meaning, but they should be subject to change and you shouldn't be too attached to them. Like almost exactly that is what I would describe as like a postmodern or post-structuralist approach to it, at least. Oh, also in terms of what you were saying about who your friend who ghosted you for 2 weeks, I've talked to a few of my friends about this. That's why my friend here made this comment too. Look, kind of like your brother. My brother, he actually like literally disowned me and blocked my texts and blocked me off Facebook and shit like that because I liked J.K. Rowling's jokes about trans people, and he accused me of being transphobic, even though I've like literally dated and sexually experimented with a few trans people before. So,
Dude,
like,
yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're able to laugh about it. I mean,
yeah,
but that shit makes me so sad that
yeah,
families are being torn apart over stupid shit like that. Stupid shit. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, I don't. It just sucks. I don't really know what else to say.
Yeah, that's all you can say, really. Like it's fucking insane. It
Yeah.
makes me think about how COVID has been so politicized too. Like
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's just baffling to me too. Like I don't get
Yeah.
how people are like that about it so much. Um
Yeah.
but yeah, so um in terms of one thing I want to say in particular is that I made this, like, I didn't even intend to do it, but the other day, my last video I did was like me rambling on for an hour basically about this kind of stuff. And one of the main points I was trying to express is that these terms that people use, they're all different realms of academic thoughts and like political labels. Like postmodernism is a very different thing from critical theory, and critical theory is different from critical race theory, and these three things are different from Marxism as well. And since I've been reading a lot of books by like classic anarchists, and also like more super left wing stuff, like even reading more about Marx and stuff. I've been learning about how there are different types of Marxism, and in reading that critical race theory book, I found out that there are actually many different types of critical race theory too. Like it started off as like kind of just a legal theory, which is like basically has the goal of examining laws and trying to change them to address racially disproportionate effects of particularly the American critical justice system. And then like that, as far as I understand it, seems to be like what most of it still is today. But then there are other people who have different approaches. Like there are critical race theorists who take the approach of like basically abolishing the concept of race because it's a social construct. And people often get the term social construct incorrect, I think. Like they think that means that it has nothing to do with biology, but it just means that it's a concept that we constructed based on biological characteristics, and we decided that this creative category is determined by these biological characteristics. And then there are the more, what I would say as like more extreme people who are more attached to I appreciate what you said about intersectionality there, because actually even like the term intersectionality, I kind of have problems with, and that's the sort of critical race theory that I start to have a problem with, where they're basically, from what I understand, it sounds like they're just like obsessing about, okay, in this hypothetical situation with this like black disabled transgender woman, which aspects of her oppression are the worst in this hypothetical situation? And then, but then that's very different from critical theory and like the Frankfurt School, which, as you and I were talking about, I read that book, The Dialectic of Enlightenment, and the main thesis was basically that the Enlightenment is a mistake and the Nazis were the champions of reason. And then that's different from political Marxism, and that's different from thinkers like Foucault and Derrida, like post-structuralists or postmodernism, who were critical of many aspects of the modern institutions of the modern era during the Enlightenment. Like Foucault, for example, in his book, The History of Sexuality, talks about how like the institutions of science and religion decided to create this category of homosexual during the Enlightenment. and decided that it's a sin and a medical flaw to be gay. But they don't, like Derrida and Foucault, they disagreed with each other a lot. And also they didn't think that the Enlightenment was a mistake and we should abolish it all and like tear down the structures of the Enlightenment and shit. And that's where, like, that's the problem that I have with public intellectuals, like people like the Jordan Peterson and James Lindsay and the IDW people, because they're like lumping all of these things together and saying this is the ideology of wokeness. But I think like wokeness is just, it's just this totally confused clusterfuck of ideas with people who don't know what they're talking about, but they want to be radical activists and they want to feel like they're making some change for understandable problems in the world, but they just don't really, they don't read what the fuck they're talking about. And it just like, just because I'm like an uber philosophy nerd and I read lots of books, like these pedantic points really annoy me.
Okay, so I think you said it yourself. You're an uber philosophy nerd. You're very curious. You do the hard work of reading. Now, the problem is, and this is basically what started our conversation on one of my YouTube videos. I don't remember which one. But my point is...
It was your long one about how your life has changed and you moving to Finland and whatnot.
Okay. So the point I was trying to make there, and I think kind of the point... And I hope I don't disappoint you by not engaging with the kind of high-level literature that you've been exploring. But my real point is that, and this is not a defense of Lindsay, this is just a general problem that I think minds like yourself and myself and philosophers in general need to orient themselves towards. And that is the notion that everybody has a stake in culture. And I think perhaps you and I would agree that culture flows downwind from philosophy. It may take, hundreds of years, but everybody or all the people that have a stake in culture will never get the nuanced understanding of critical race theory versus wokeism versus postmodernism that you have. It's just not realistic. So when we say that, okay, well, Lindsay or Peterson is wrong because he's misunderstanding Foucault, it doesn't matter, because even if that's true, and my criticism of a lot of people who criticize people like Peterson and Lindsay is that they basically just stop the hard work after saying, well, Peterson's wrong about Foucault. He doesn't get it. He hasn't read it. It doesn't matter. Whatever he's reacting to is a real thing. And even if it's a watered down version of something, and even it's basically like, we're playing a game of telephone. And even if I were to tell the 50th person in line that, oh, the person actually said the brown dog jumped over the fox, not all white people are racist, it doesn't really matter, because the person on the 50th person in line still thinks that they still heard that all white people are racist. And even if you tell them what the first person said, they don't care. It's not really, and also, in this analogy, it's not entirely appropriate, because the first person in the telephone line is more of like, a stack of books this big that you need a collegiate, maybe even graduate level education to understand for most people. And so what do we do with the reality? Like, what do we do with these mutated ideas that cannot be defeated by saying that, well, the citation of the source material or the genealogy of their ideas are wrong? What do we do about it? And I think that philosophers in general need to stop writing papers or books that only 15 people read, and start making more YouTube channels to do the harder work, which is to meet people where they're at. Because everybody, as we talked about before, everybody has an opinion on critical race theory. And most of those people even if they tried to pick up the books you've read, they won't understand it, they won't get through it, they don't have the attention span for it. I mean, I know I'm being cynical, but hopefully you'll agree with me that I'm being a bit of a realist here.
I
And
don't know.
so
I don't give myself that much credit, but thanks.
but you said it yourself, you're a philosophy nerd. Philosophy nerds are what, like 0.0001 of the percent of the population, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So that's my thing, is that we can say that Peterson is wrong, Peterson gets Foucault wrong, Peterson doesn't understand Derrida. I mean, honestly, to say that anyone understands Derrida is a bit much for me, especially if you don't speak French, because so much of it is like French wordplay. And like another thing is that, like, I think one of the things we touched on was Lindsay's speech about Hegel. And again, Hegel is basically poetry in some terms. So I'm not saying that it's okay.
It sounds like you're making postmodern criticisms in a little bit of a way, though. Like these things are so difficult to understand that, like, what anyone says about them is kind of almost justified.
Well, if you watch Wisecrack, probably the philosopher we talked about the most was Baudrillard. So I don't want you to think that I'm some kind of a postmodernism, like, I mean, it's an extremely important mode of thought, and I think that our current media landscape is pretty much Baudrillard to a T. So I definitely recognize the validity and importance of this particular movement. Now, when it comes to whatever has grown out of it, 50, iterations down the telephone line later, I also don't think it's very helpful. So, like in the title of the thing, when you say postmodernism or the Frankfurt School, are they to blame? The answer is no. It's not helpful to blame them because, again, like when we talk about this analogy,
but that's what they're doing, though. That's what they're doing. They're blaming them. Like James Lindsay and Jordan Peterson are blaming them. They're like, this postmodernism and like Hegel and the Frankfurt School and critical race theory, they're all to blame because they're gonna lead to like genocide or some shit, or like Jordan Peterson talks about the fucking gulag or some shit like that.
Yeah, so I'm going to draw a distinction here that may seem very, very minor, but let me know if you agree with this. I'm going to be talking a lot about this telephone analogy, but like, okay, so, and I've like listened to like 3 Lindsay podcasts and then read his book. And in general, even when it comes to Foucault, who is basically kind of like the person that he quote unquote blames for, where we ended up with race and identity politics and stuff, I would argue that it's still valid to say that, all right, the first person in the telephone line was Foucault. That doesn't mean he's the one to blame, because even if you or I to play this telephone game and you were the first person in line, it's not your fault that by the end somebody thinks something totally different than what you said. It is the process of culture. It's the process of communication. It is the Baudrillardian nightmare that makes like meaning decay as it is, like as copies and copies of it are made. So
you sound like Foucault right now.
Right. So again, like as I said, I well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I ever said anything to suggest that Foucault is some sort of a monster that no one should read. I don't think that.
Oh, I'm not accusing you of thinking that. I would say, like, let's look at this other comment that my friend here said. Peterson called Foucault evil. I think that would be my point.
Work, I know his work less than I know Lindsay's.
And, well, did you happen to watch? Because I know you're a fan of Slavoj Žižek. Did you happen to watch that debate between him and Jordan Peterson about like postmodernism?
Times. Yeah.
Okay.
I love it. Well, I love that debate.
Yeah, I actually liked it because, like, partially because, contrary to the like tribalistic interpretations that people had in different directions about it, I thought they actually like had a pretty good conversation and they were like not really acrimonious towards each other. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that I actually liked about it.
as strange as this is going to sound, I actually think that was Zizek at his most concise, which is not saying a lot. But
yeah, that's for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know. Like, again, I haven't read any of Peterson's
let me
books.
say,
I haven't listened to any of his podcasts. I know that is labeled postmodern neo-Marxism. I mean, what
makes
he is
no
referring
sense.
to, well, in a literal sense, it makes no sense. But I mean, like, again, like what I'm going to say, I don't really care about, but like just to play devil's advocate, like you could make the argument that, all right, so Frankfurt School, Marcuse, self-avowed neo-Marxist, his student Angela Davis, and then what's the Kimberly Crenshaw, her paper mapping the margins, which started the whole critical race theory discussion, was a response to a paper that Angela Davis wrote. And then, as I pointed out in that thing, that in mapping the margins, she does explicitly say that she considers intersectionality to be a postmodern theory. So you could draw that genealogy if you wanted. But again, because I'm coming from this, whatever you want to call post-label, postmodern perspective, I don't care. It's not really important.
Well, in terms of Kimberly Crenshaw, for example, like, and in terms of intersectionality, like if you go to the sort of versions of critical race theory, which I thought it was at first until I actually started reading books about it, is like this Robin DiAngelo, like white fragility shit, and like Ta-Nehisi Coates, like what their version of critical race theory is kind of like what James Lindsay and Jordan Peterson are criticizing, which is not really what's actually going on. And like Kimberly Crenshaw herself said that the way intersectionality is interpreted by people like Robin DiAngelo is really like not the sort of thing she was talking about. So like one of the things I was saying is that, like, to me, one of the main problems of this is that like social justice activists are like, and I think social justice is a good thing to pursue, but like they're like taking these ideas and they're going like way off the fucking deep end. They're like jumping the shark 18 times, like all white people are racist, they're racist in all interactions, you should hate all white people, America is awful, this sort of shit. But like that really wasn't the point of like any of these things, really. Like Foucault and Derrida and like even critical theory people and critical race theory people, their goals, like even the intellectual parts of these things today, I wouldn't say that that's their goals. And I would say that even like intellectual versions, some versions of this are just confused too. Like I know that, like, I'm certainly not one of those people who says like, you know, this like critical race theory being taught in schools is a total straw man. Like you said, it doesn't seem like it's being taught in like elementary schools or something. But when I went to college a few years ago, and it sounds like I would say I actually have like basically the same level of problems with the like the formal education system as you do, perhaps. Like I said, I'm a huge philosophy nerd, but I prefer just like reading books, writing, making my own videos about it, because attempting to educate others is one of the best ways to teach myself more about things. And then also like doing podcasts, like talking with people like you who are interested and have researched these things, really enhances my knowledge. And I've figured like I've started taking a philosophy degree twice and then just given up, because I'm like, I can learn all of this for free way more easily. And why am I doing these fucking papers and spending like 3 hours doing citations so I can get a degree and hopefully do what I want to do with it, when what I really actually would rather do is kind of like make enough money to make a living from my YouTube channel talking with people about philosophy. And as you were saying, like actually spreading knowledge to more people instead of like writing papers that 15 people will read or shit like that.
Or just your TA in that case.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, look, like Andrew, you're right, but that's not enough. It's not enough to be right. Like, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. How do we fix this problem? How do we,
right.
Yeah.
I was gonna get. I meant to get to
Yeah.
that. Yeah. But there's just so much to say. Like,
Yeah.
like I think that, like I think to go around like what I would say is fear mongering about all of these labels is it doesn't help anything. It just makes the situation worse. Like it makes people like it's just serving up people demons on a silver platter to blame for problems. And like you said, I don't agree that going around pointing fingers at people is a way to solve these problems. I think like a better way to do this is to attempt to educate people about these things. Like the good thing about reading books that people talk about and investigate ideas is even the boogeyman ideas rarely turn out to be anywhere near as scary as you think they are. And like we were talking about earlier, that's the same for like a lot of like right-wing stuff too. Like I know you and I talked a little bit about like how we're both fans of Glenn Lowry too. And I think that like if you want to look at like really sophisticated right-leaning intellectuals like Glenn Lowry and Thomas Sowell is a favorite one of mine too. So like it's good to like educate yourselves. And I think like
The
better thing to do
most about I was going to say the thing I admire most about Glenn is that he is very good at inhabiting the other perspective and like basically like inhabiting the perspective that he doesn't agree with, but like kind of engaging with it in good faith. So even though he disagrees, steel manning, exactly. He's very good at it, and in good faith, at least in all I've seen of when he does it.
For sure.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I forgot what I was saying, but I was pretty much done saying what I was saying there.
Yeah, I mean, look, and again, when you mention that you are doing better, more productive work doing what you're doing right now on your YouTube channel than you would be writing those papers. So good for you for not taking, and you know, I'm not trying to knock higher education. I mean, obviously, and I hope it doesn't need to be said, higher education is one of the most important things in the world to me. However, I think that people need to kind of step up and recognize a greater responsibility of what they do with that higher education. So if you have a PhD in philosophy and then you get a job at TikTok or some bullshit, you know, like you'll never use your philosophy degree, but you're the only one stopping you from doing that, you know, because you can create a YouTube channel, you can start a podcast, and hopefully, you do the hard work of, again, trying to mend the divide, not for one side to win. And like, I'll yell that up and down the aisles as much as I can.
For sure. I think I like this comment here too. How do you defeat the division-based profit model? I think that's a big problem of it too. Like, I don't know if have you read Matt Taibbi's book called Hate Inc? I
have not.
No, go. He's a great He's a great journalist. He basically talks about how it's kind of like a putting forward the message that Noam Chomsky made in Manufacturing Consent to a degree. It's basically his thesis that the mainstream news media model is literally based on the same model as professional wrestling, like marketing, like this guy smashes this other guy. Come see it tonight in WrestleMania 19.
It's obscene.
Yeah. And social media is that way too. And like I try to like pay attention to like political YouTubers across the political spectrum, and I have respect for a lot of them, but even ones that I respect often, like, like basically play up the drama and like sometimes like I bet a lot of people do this actually, like have the guilty pleasure of looking at people's YouTube videos about the drama and shit. Sometimes I do that too. It's like keeping up with the
me too.
Kardashians basically.
Yeah. What I admit I was pretty into the Jimmy Dore TYT drama.
Oh yeah, I
it
was
like
too actually. Yeah.
especially because as somebody who raised money for a social media business, the idea that Jank has raised tens of millions is like, I can't, I mean, it's a nightmare for him. I can only imagine. I mean, that company is going down. I mean, financially, I mean, whatever their politics are, whatever, but I mean, just the business model is not there. And when I look at him and I look at Anna, I see two people who were pretty darn convinced that they were going to be rich at the end of this venture, and you know, probably started buying houses based on like this valuation of their company, and all of that is falling apart and it's killing them. And granted, that's just a lot of me projecting kind of like my own experiences in the industry, but I can't help but think that, you know, that is keeping them from like admitting any wrongdoing in a situation where it seems, at least in some respects, they're obviously wrong. Especially, I mean, I don't know if you followed the drama, but, and not that it really matters, but yeah, I mean, like, I'm not immune
I'm
to watching
unfortunately
the
too
train
aware
wreck
of that.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like watching the plane crash into the mountain too. I'm only human.
Yeah, for sure.
What other drama do you get into?
Oh, did you get into that stuff with like Steven Crowder and Sam Cedar?
Yeah.
Oh, that was so hilarious too.
I saw the thing where Cedar, and see, like, that's a scenario that I never want to be in. I never
me
want to be
neither.
this.
Yeah.
I never want to be this the Crowder who is basically, he realizes that like people pay me to be a superhero for a particular ideology, and if I ever
Yeah.
have a conversation with someone who kind of unmasks me, then my patrons are going to go away or whatever. See, that's a situation I never want to be in, and that's why I haven't like started a Patreon or anything. Not that I mean, I might eventually, but I want people to know that I'm not going to be the superhero for their tribe. Like, that's not what I'm looking to do.
Yeah. I try
Yeah.
like you were kind of saying earlier, I kind of try to do the same thing that you try to do. I really try to avoid being tribal about things, although obviously I get that way about things sometimes too. And that's one thing that I was thinking about that I think I forgot to mention earlier, that like in terms of public intellectuals like the IDW people and James Lindsay and Jordan Peterson, like I try to always avoid throwing out the baby with the bathwater with people. And like but I would say that there are things that I do admire and agree with about all of these people that we've talked about, like James Lindsay and Jordan Peterson too. Like I think I was telling you a little bit in one of my like rambly comments on your videos, I think, about how I actually got to briefly talk with James Lindsay about his book with Peter Boghossian called How to Have Impossible Conversations. And I'm a big fan of that book because it's basically self-explanatory how to have more productive conversations with people. So I appreciate that for sure. And I thought it was really interesting also when James Lindsay went on Thaddeus Russell's podcast. And actually, it was he and Helen Pluckrose, and they were talking about postmodernism. And at the time, James Lindsay was talking about how he actually agreed with Thaddeus Russell. I don't know. Are you aware of Thaddeus Russell? Okay, not. He's actually one of the people I first started learning about postmodernism from. And I thought it was interesting because he was one of the first people who had kind of like a favorable perspective toward it. I highly recommend his book, by the way, called Renegade History of the United States. It's kind of about how the rarely looked at history of about like social outcasts and people like that, and how they how they made American culture, like how Black slaves brought things like dancing and singing into American culture, and how like the first Irish immigrants were literally referred to as the N-word, and they were seen as bad people because they would drink all day long and shit like that. And it was about how like madams who owned brothels were some of the first like feminist entrepreneurs and stuff like that.
That
But
sounds like a good book. Hold on.
yeah, it's
What's
really
the name of it? I'm
interesting.
going to write it down. You said A Renegade History of the U.S.?
Yeah, Renegade History of the United States. Yeah. And yeah, his podcast is interesting too. He has lots of like radical people who are against the mainstream that he talks to. But anyway, in that podcast, James Lindsay was talking about how he kind of agreed more with Thaddeus Russell at that time, that that kind of the critical theorists in the Frankfurt School, there's more of a direct link between that and so-called postmodernism, well, so-called wokeness, than there is between like postmodernism and that. But anyway, I really liked their conversation because they agreed and disagreed about some things in terms of that. And in terms of Jordan Peterson, I like his first book called Maps of Meaning. It is way more academic, but I like this because it's more of this thing that he used to do but doesn't seem to do as much anymore, where he's talking about different religious themes and the similarities and differences between different religious traditions and the similar themes in them, and how they can be applied to psychology. And I don't mind his newest book that much either, but it seems like he doesn't do that as much and is more like focused on this narrow depiction of Christianity and stuff. And then obviously my main problem is that he's like spreading misinformation about postmodernism. And like I said, I acknowledge that that is a pedantic point, but I also don't think it's good to like demonize realms of thought and stuff like that. But anyway, the point is that he's helped a lot of people for sure, and I think both he and James Lindsay have good intentions for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Peter's. I haven't read any of his books, and I've only seen like the every once. I know that he's a big Dostoevsky person, and I'm a big Dostoevsky person, so I've seen like a couple of his talks on that. But I get the feeling, and of course, I obviously need to do more research, but I get the feeling that Peterson likes money a lot, and he also knows that the more that he kind of gives people a scapegoat, the more money he will get. And that's a bit cynical. I don't know if he's consciously or unconsciously doing this, but I don't know. Again, I don't really feel comfortable making that judgment because I don't know his work as well as I know Lindsay's. I think Lindsay is mostly in good faith, though, from what I've read. And I've read. Have you read Cynical Theories?
Yeah, that's one where I read that book, and like I had so many problems with it when I was reading it that I took a whole bunch of detailed notes on each chapter, and I'm planning on doing a video series on it.
Let me know when you do, because I mean, I'm not being facetious. I would love to listen to it, because when I read the book, I said, oh, okay, I think there's a lot of value here. And then I looked at all the criticisms, and the most valid criticism I was able to find was from some philosophy grad student somewhere. And mostly his criticisms came from one of the final chapters where he actually engages with the critical race theory scholars. And apparently he just gives very cynical, uncharitable readings of some of their work, and that's a fair criticism.
Right. Okay. Yeah, actually, if yeah, sure. I appreciate you saying that, and I will let you know when I do that. Also, if you're interested, I think I might have mentioned when we were talking in your comments about this. I recently did a few podcasts with this guy named Peter Salmon, who he wrote a biography of Derrida recently called An Event, Perhaps. And I had a few interesting discussions with him because I read his article. I forget what website it's on, but he wrote an article kind of criticizing cynical theories, basically, and kind of pointing out that Foucault and Derrida disagreed with each other a lot. So he and I talk about that specifically in our podcast that we did a few months ago. If you're interested in checking that out, I forget what it's called, but it's got like a black and white picture of Derrida and Foucault for the thumbnail. And we also did a deep dive into Husserl's phenomenology because he's a fan of that, which was interesting because I didn't know much about that. But yeah, I think if you read more books about the ideas that James Lindsay and Helen Pluckrose are talking about, I think they're kind of just like, to oversimplify it a bit, they're kind of oversimplifying ideas and pointing fingers where they don't need to be pointing, and drawing connections that are kind of, like, I would say, tenuous, and like I was saying before, lumping a whole bunch of these different ideas together as if they're really like one part of the same idea.
But they are part of the same tribe. Like, they are, like, if you're part of that tribe, that like critical social justice tribe, those are all things that you can't, well, maybe I'm oversimplifying, but you can't be critical of. And that's why I'm less offended by that notion. And granted, like, there's nothing that you're saying that I disagree with. However, when you make up the point of like that they're watering down ideas or something like that, like, yes, but these ideas have been watered down. We're to the point where, like, bar owners that I know, and there's nothing, I'm not saying anything against bar owners, but bar owners who don't read, you know, and not to say all bar owners don't read, but this particular one that I follow on Facebook and happen to like the guy, but he posts obscenely stupid things on Facebook about like how critical race theory is the truth, and like elementary school students should be, you know what I'm saying? Like, and and not to criticize,
like I was telling you, like, I have family members who literally are these caricatures of like whack job SJWs.
Right. Yeah. And what do we do about it? And like, look, I don't have the answer. I want us to figure it out. Like, and even in this podcast, we still haven't figured it out. And I'm not saying that we should. That's the goal.
I wasn't planning on figuring it out in our.
But this is what has to happen. Like, we have to figure this out. Like, and you know, you're doing the hard work of, you know, being able to, you know, perhaps find the more precise reality that Pluckrose and Lindsay and Peterson are not commenting upon. But how do we fix the watered down ideas? How do we fix the fact that these ideas have flown downwind to the point where they've created this cult that doesn't care about the original ideas, you know, because it's so firmly entrenched in their identity that any violation of the watered down idea will, like, you know, I sometimes think that like a lot of people just have too much invested in this identity of critical social justice or whatever, that like they've gone too far. They can't start doubting it now, or else, you know, like, they lose their whole sense of community. They lose their whole sense of identity. They lose their relationship with family members. Like, it's such a big problem. It's so deeply entrenched in people's sense of self. And it's a hard fucking issue that you know.
Well, like this is reminding me too of like we mentioned Glenn Lowry earlier. I really like his conversations with John McWhorter about this subject, because like, especially John McWhorter, he's clearly investigated these ideas more, and he wrote a book recently, which I haven't read, but which was all about this thing, and about how basically this sort of ideology that we're describing is kind of like a religion. And I would just like I said, I would just call that wokeness, basically, which is just a broad set of confused and misunderstood ideas. Like, oh yeah, I mentioned earlier, but I forgot to explain what I was talking about. When I went back to school briefly, like a few years ago, I went into a sociology class, which I could tell even in the description of the course, I'm like, this isn't sociology, this is wokeness. And then every day in class, it was like, okay, today we're going to learn about racism, sexism, Marxism, fat phobia, transgenderism, and all of these things. And I'm like, but but why are we learning about these things? And then I would ask simple questions like for one of our classes, we watched a short documentary about how I forget which country it was. One of the Nordic countries, I think, where a school basically made it the case that you are not allowed to declare your child's gender when you go to school. And after we watched the documentary, I just asked, isn't that just as authoritarian as demanding that you have to declare the gender of your child? And then one of our classes was a TED talk with this enormous woman who was saying that
how did the professor react to that question? I'm curious.
she said, yeah, it is, but there's been like a history of oppression and heteronormativity, and we need to like balance out this historical imbalance or something like that. That sort of narrative that I think is just really.
I can think of some other people who were quite good at justifying authoritarianism, but anyway,
exactly.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, exactly. And like this woman in the fat phobia video was basically saying there's nothing unhealthy about walking around looking like Jabba the Hutt. Like, I don't think that's true.
Dude, I mean, there are people I know. There are people I know in Los Angeles, and that's another thing. Like, God, another thing about wokeism is that there's such. Well, so I have a couple things about what you said, but first of all, for fat phobia, like, I know people that really love friends that are like in this fat activist camp, and these people are using fat activism to basically gain like hundreds of pounds. And look, if you really loved that friend, you would be concerned for their health, and you would try to snap them out of it. But in somewhere like Los Angeles, where there's an ideological dress code just to be even considered for jobs in the entertainment industry, nobody's going to tell you that. And if you think that, and that's just an environment where you don't have friends, you have allies. And that's not an environment I wanted to be in, which is one of the reasons that I left. But secondly, you mentioned something about like a professor in a university who was basically just spouting woke bullshit. And that's another thing that I think is what makes Lindsay and Pluckrose's work valid in a respect. And again, I'm going to go back to this telephone metaphor, because like, I don't believe, and I think you'll agree with this, I do not believe that that PhDs are given out with any actual sense of rigor. It's really just a getting a PhD is like, there's a lot of work involved, but it's basically a transaction. If you are in a PhD program, you get a PhD. It doesn't matter the value or the value of your thought. You know, you'll have an advisor who will kind of guide you in the right direction. But at the end of the day, if you paid for that PhD, you're getting it. And so even though like the great thinkers like Foucault and Derrida may have these ideas that are, you know, not in sync with the woke nightmare, the people that study these things are not being held to a standard where they understand them as well as you do, somebody who doesn't have a graduate degree or a PhD. I don't know, maybe you do have a graduate degree, but you see what I'm saying here? Like, I think that's another issue, is that, you know, one of the books I read recently was Coddling of the American Mind, the Jonathan Haidt book.
Oh yeah, I love Jonathan Haidt. I'm a huge fan of his. Yeah.
And one of the basic points he makes is that universities are becoming resorts. And I think that that's true. And that's another huge problem that will lead to people having bad readings of Foucault getting published. And those people will be teaching students in college. And and that's, you know, one of the reasons why Cornel West left Harvard, because there's just like a culture of silence and a culture of cowardice around reviewing theses.
Wasn't it specifically because he's like anti-Israel?
But I mean, I think that the subject doesn't matter. It's the fact that, like, you know, people can't you know, express certain opinions, or that, you know, the actual process itself of confirming PhD candidates or even confirming professorships or tenures is heavily politicized. So whether the subject is different, I think it's still kind of the same problem.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I think I think the most important point you brought up is maybe it seems to be the one you see as the most important, and I would say it is too, which is that you know, like, what do we really actually do about this? Like, to me, I don't think there's anything I really can do other than, like you were saying, just like talking with people about this, attempting to learn about it, and attempting to spread information. I I have like a really small YouTube channel anyway, but it would be great. I mean, like, the main reason I do this though, and I would like to earn a living from this, is like I just like learning about ideas and trying to tell people about them. Like, I'm not really so sure there's anything I can actually do to solve these cultural problems or anything like that, unless I wanted to get like actually involved in politics or something. And I'm pretty goddamn cynical about actually, I would never want to be any sort of politician or anything like that.
Yeah, you smoke too much weed to be a politician.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
do I, for that matter. Okay, I want to share something with you. I was actually thinking about making a YouTube video about this, and I want your feedback. So this is a conversation I had on a dating app, and I'm considering naming this video "How to Deal with Woke People." And let's see if I can pull it up. So basically, I was talking to this girl in Finland, and she was giving me all of these kind of like red flag signs that I'm dealing with a woke person here. So like, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically she said she was in animation in LA. The animators are for some reason the most like crazy woke. I don't know why, but that was one thing. She also said that she wrote a paper about how the United States was exporting patriarchy to the Nordics or something like that. And, you know, I wasn't like being, you know, usually I was just like, okay, whatever, let's talk about movies. You know, I wasn't really engaging with that at all. Then she said something about, I was recently writing about queer cinema. American cinema
What's
was in a
queer
sense,
cinema?
I guess, just movies about gay people. It's just like an,
Okay.
and American cinema was exporting patriarchy, and this notion of a nuclear family is the model. So already here, I'm thinking, all right, well, if this is all this girl wants to talk about, this probably isn't going to work. So I'm just gonna give her my real thoughts, see what happens. So I said, queer theory is an interesting lens, but not one that really informs my particular worldview. However, I will say that the best gay film ever is One Car Wise Happy Together. Here I am trying to prove that, hey, I still, you know, am all about the gay agenda and like gay rights and like. And then she said, what do you mean by it not informing your worldview? And this is another problem with woke people. I think that they think that queer studies is like, they don't even understand that it's a lens. It's just like the frontier of knowledge, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then I responded, I'm more of an existential humanist. I also think that patriarchy is a result of gender roles, not vice versa. Believe me, I know that's an inflammatory statement to people who have very strong ideological sentiments. I just lived the last 11 years in LA, an idealist shithole if there ever was one. However, I'm comfortable with dating people who disagree with me on such things as long as the respect is mutual. And then she gave me the classic response. I'm almost done, by the way. She gave me the classic response. That's a very white America-centric point of view, what you said about quote unquote traditional gender roles. And then I said, and then I said, well, positionality and standpoint epistemology is also something I'm quite critical of. Yes, I am white and American. Assuming you're not saying that to be egregiously redundant, you're suggesting that I think critically about how my position in society affects my perspectives in an intersectional manner. I do try to make it a priority to do so. I agree with the basic notion of intersectionality. However, I think when communicating one-on-one, we should treat people as individuals. I would not presume that your ethnicity, sex, or historical background taints your ability to rationally and humanely adopt an ideological position, and I'd ask you do the same for me. And she apologized. She said, yeah, sorry, wasn't aimed at you personally. At some point, you do get tired explaining to others that your perspective on your place in society is equally as valid as theirs. Now, she later ghosted me, so I would not recommend this for anyone who wants to get laid.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do feel like at least getting a woke person to apologize for, you know, basically doing the whole standpoint epistemology thing is some kind of progress.
Yeah, for sure. That was it. And like, especially when you're communicating through text format. Actually, you and I had miscommunication about this at first, just from that text format. It's like
Right.
it's built to make you like angry at people in the way that you're communicating with people. So it takes a lot of discipline to actually make kind of like a nuanced point where you're like respectfully disagreeing and saying, but I can associate with people who disagree with me. It's hard to do that too. Like I have trouble with that myself sometimes. So like actually, but it's important to do nonetheless, like you said, like to treat people you agree with like people who are actually human beings and probably have just as good of intentions as you do.
Yeah. And again, like I think that conversation could have gone, for someone who disagrees with, the use of standpoint epistemology, because it's a dangerous game to play. I mean, I'm patting myself on the back here, but I feel like I dealt with it gracefully. And, like that's how, if you're somebody who is critical of wokeness, that's how you deal with it. And maybe that's an answer of like, what we do about this problem. Maybe that's just a step in the right direction. It's just like patiently communicating to them what you agree on, what you disagree on, and ultimately pleading for them to see you as a good faith human. And I think that, if you're, hopefully you can make it work. Obviously, if you want to get laid, just mirror their opinions like they want you to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I haven't I would say I haven't interacted with like woke women on dating apps to that level, but I've definitely like people decide to brag about their political views in their profiles
Oh
sometimes
yeah.
like I won't date conservatives, or they'll put like BLM in their profile. Like why the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're basically just saying what your political bias is if you put like BLM in your bio rather. And you know what? I've never seen a black woman put BLM in her profile. I've only seen white women do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen that in Finland. Well, maybe like once or twice. I mean, I've only been here for 3 weeks, but like, yeah, yeah. And where in Canada do you live?
In Fort McMurray, Alberta. So it's like
Okay.
middle of like redneck oil country. Like Fort McMurray is one of the biggest oil industries in the whole world. And yeah, there are like a lot of stereotypical rednecks here, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing. Like, even my perspectives on like what I'm choosing to talk about is largely a reaction to the fact I just lived in fucking Hollywood for 11 years. And so like I was surrounded by the wokest of the woke. And I'm sure that like even the perspectives that we came from when we first engaged on my YouTube channel, I know other people that are in similar social positions as you, and they tend to just lean more left just because they're constantly surrounded by the dumbest of the right, if you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying. Like, and so
I
I mean,
think
even
I
I'm guilty
like
of being that reactionary,
Yeah. I think like in a sense it's almost a good thing that like I live where I do, but also like a lot of my family members are like really super lefty, so I'm always like interacting like my it's interesting because like I told you about how I got disowned for liking JK Rowling's jokes about trans people, but then but then also like my friend's mom like offhandedly will sometimes say things like immigrants are stealing all people's jobs, or that these people aren't Christian enough, or like the complete stereotype of a conservative Christian person and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So from that to like literally I've seen one of my family members post on Facebook like that like super lefty stuff, like drifting into anarchism without even realizing it. I think like demolish all police, prisons, and military.
Yeah. So I want to hear. So I have a theory on J.K. Rowling that I want to get your opinion on. I think that there's something about the Harry Potter books. First of all, one of the biggest demographics of Harry Potter fans are white women, and as we were kind of discussing, a lot of like people who buy into wokeness the most are white women. Harry Potter is a bit of a competence fantasy about academia in the sense that, like, Hogwarts is a revered school where the greatest warriors and greatest minds of the world are all professors. And as we've discussed, that's not really in line with reality.
True.
And I can't help but think that there was a whole generation of white women that went to university thinking that it was going to be like Hogwarts in that, like, I would be taught the gospel, the skills, the knowledge that would allow, like that there was just like this sanctity to to academia. And it's interesting to see that J.K. Rowling, who probably very much thought this way, is now kind of like on the other side of that. She's now been like condemned by that establishment that she lionized for decades, and so I'm thinking about making a video about like how Harry Potter ruined everything, but I think people would hate it too much.
Yeah, even that title will make people think that you hate J.K. Rowling.
No, it's well. First of all, I have not read that that essay that everyone says is super inflammatory. So I'm not really that caught up on that. But
I haven't even actually either. I just saw like the tweets about it that people were getting mad about. And I thought
yeah,
it was like something like she made a joke like what do we call people who menstruate? Woman? Like she was just making a joke like that, basically.
Yeah. Well, comedy is a whole other thing that I feel very strongly about.
Yeah.
But damn it, what was I going to say?
Something about J.K. Rowling?
Maybe I'm forgetting now. But or maybe it was. Oh yeah, and also like Harry Potter. Like if you were to like do like kind of I think another quality of wokeness is like they love to throw around the term essentialism, and essentialism is just pure evil, and that's basically the message of Harry Potter. That I remember in the third or fourth movie, I think it's the third movie, the opening scene where Harry Potter is at home with the Dursleys and he has like his evil aunt that like he uses his wand to blow up, and like then like she blows up like a balloon, and then she like goes into the backyard, and like they lose the aunt because she's blown up like a balloon and flown away. Do you remember this scene at all?
Vaguely. It's been a while since I read the books. I've been meaning to reread them, but vaguely I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reason that Harry Potter, like, I think unintentionally did that is because she was going on a whole rant about, what, if the bitch is a bad egg, then the pup is going to be a bad egg, like just pure essentialism. And then of course with like the whole discourse about mudbloods and like purebloods and stuff like that, obviously JK had very good intentions of, presenting kind of an anti-essentialist view, but it's crazy how people took that from her, took it way too far, and now she's in the doghouse for being too essentialist. It's crazy.
Yeah, I haven't actually thought about that before. That's a really good point. Yeah.
It's yeah. I rewatched. I actually didn't work for like almost a year after Wisecrack, like October to August. I did not do anything. It was great. And I rewatched so many movies, a lot of like the old childhood movies that I watched in theaters. So I rewatched all the Harry Potter movies. And that came to mind. I was like, wow, a lot of the ideology here is like wokeness 1.0.
Yeah.
And
That's interesting.
And wokeness is right now, or I guess maybe like wokeness 0.5 or something like that, or 0.3.
Yeah. What would 0.3? What's
I
0.1
guess
and
I'm saying
0.2?
if wokeness is wokeness 1.0, then wokeness 0.3 is like the proto wokeness or something. Pre
Oh,
woke.
okay. I
Yeah,
see what
yeah,
you mean.
yeah. Um, but
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, I would, Andrew. I'd love to do this again. And if there's one thing I want us to take away from this conversation, it's what is to be done. What is to be done? Because being right is not enough.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. Like I said, I just all I'm gonna do unless I think of some brilliant idea, which I kind of doubt, or some completely unforeseen opportunity comes along, is just learn and talk about these ideas. That's the best I can do, I think. And
yeah. Well,
yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah. I mean, I would say don't discredit yourself. You might come up with a brilliant idea. Don't stop thinking about it. But yeah, I mean, you're doing the right thing and you're in the right direction.
thanks. Well,
Yeah, man.
yeah.
Well,
So go ahead.
go ahead. I was going to say thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, yeah. Thanks for talking with me, man. Like I said, I really appreciate it, and yeah. So I would love to talk again too. As we were talking before about how it'd be good to maybe do an episode about Slavoj Žižek. That'd be a fun thing to do if you want to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Or
Yeah.
if you want to talk movies, I mean, I know more about
Oh
movies
yeah,
than I
for
do about
sure,
philosophy.
for sure. Yeah,
I
yeah.
have an email thread with James Lindsay, although he's like really busy. I want him to talk about the movie Hail Caesar with me. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so it's a Coen Brothers movie, and the premise is like during like a McCarthy era Hollywood, an actor played by George Clooney, who's basically playing like the Jimmy Stewart of his day, gets kidnapped by Herbert Marcuse, who gives him a like it's it's the only Hollywood movie you'll ever see this happen, but Marcuse gives George Clooney a what's the word I'm looking for, like a lesson about the dialectic. And and I know that Lindsay talks a lot about the dialectic, and of course, it's the Coen brothers, so there's a lot of like compare and contrasting between like the communist ideology versus like Christian imagery, because this Jimmy Stewart character is actually captured from a set of a movie that is retelling the Christ narrative. So it's a very
Oh,
interesting
okay.
contrast, a really interesting movie, a very funny movie. If you like the Coen brothers, I really recommend you watch it. And hey,
Cool.
if you have strong thoughts about it, maybe we can both talk to Lindsay about it.
Yeah, that would be awesome, man. Yeah, I would. I should check that out, and
I think
yeah,
it's
I'll
on
let you know.
Netflix, although I don't know if US Netflix is the same as Canada Netflix.
Yeah, Canadian Netflix is it does have a little bit of a different lineup. Um, oh, did my friend Dusty has been commenting said this talk about Paul Verhoeven. Actually, yeah,
Oh, you know what? Before we go off, so this is related to Paul Verhoeven, and I actually wanted to get your opinion on this. So, the closest thing that I think that Wisecrack ever had to like juicy drama was like Sargon of Akkad, or what's his name, Carl Benjamin. You know what I'm talking about, right?
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he made like a video that was really critical of our Starship Troopers video, which is a Paul Verhoeven movie. And like I love Paul Verhoeven, but anyway, I've actually been in Instagram contact with Carl, and I really
Oh
want to
wow.
talk to him. I want to talk to him, but I am afraid that I'm literally going to lose friends for even having him on my channel.
Oh
What do you
yeah.
think?
Oh man, I don't know. Oh, like I would do it if it were me, but part of it is like almost because I have a way smaller following than you do, so like I'm
I'm
not
not
as
doing it for
concerned
views.
about.
I mean, but like we've been talking about,
No,
just
I mean
having
like
dialogue between people that disagree.
just because less people would know if I did it, so it would be like ammo for
If you
me
were me,
being like less cancelable. If I were you, I think I would honestly still do it. I mean,
okay.
like, uh, like, don't blame me if some terrible
I
shit
have.
happens, but
Well, I mean, I think it's things. I don't think anyone in Finland. Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe people know who he is, but it's certainly a lot less politicized here than it is in America. But you know, I have lost friends that I loved, friends that I considered like that I thought at the time I would take a bullet for, you know, and I lost a friend because I was in contact with, and someone was actually, do you know who Max Landis is?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't
Well,
think so.
he's a Hollywood figure. He's not a philosopher or anything, or he's not a political
Okay.
figure. He's the son of a Hollywood director named John Landis, and he's like our age or my age. I have no idea how old you are, but like uh, he wrote the movie Chronicle. He wrote the movie Bright that was on Netflix. He wrote the movie Frankenstein with Dan Radcliffe. Anyway, he got canceled because basically he was an asshole and he's really handsy towards women, and but he's also kind of a genius. And as much as I would like to discredit his success to nepotism, there's no denying his success. Excuse me, his talent. There's no denying his talent. And I lost a friend who ghosted me. That was someone who I considered myself very close to, just because I told her that I was talking to Max about creative ideas.
Wow.
And so I am kind of afraid of stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, like, yeah, like honestly, like I said, to me, I would still do it if I had the opportunity. I wasn't saying that you were doing it for views or anything like that. I just mean I would do it just because he's such a controversial figure, and to like talk to him about, you know, like there are definitely areas where I agree and disagree with him about, and I'm fans of some YouTubers who I think get carried away with their criticisms of him, like calling him a white nationalist or some shit like that. And I actually used to be, I haven't really followed much of his content for a while, but I used to follow it more avidly. But I think that subject that you were kind of alluding to in terms of Starship Troopers is really interesting too, because there's this argument about what the Starship Troopers movie was actually about, and I kind of agree with because I saw your guys' podcast that you did about that movie. I kind of agree with your take that it's meant to be a satire, or at least if you look at it as a satire, it's a way better movie. And it's like, but Paul Verhoeven famously like didn't even actually read the whole book. And I understand if you're like a big fan of the book that you would say that he was not true to Robert Heinlein's vision, because I think he was not. But I also think that he made a brilliant satire that's also hilarious and really fun to watch. Like the first time I saw that movie was when I was a teenager or something. So I had no idea it was a satire. The cheesiness did not keep me into that at all. So I was just like, ooh, awesome, boobs and violets. But then
it's really subtle. I
yeah,
mean, I saw it for the first time, like I was like 28 or something, and I did not. I was still skeptical if it was in fact a satire. But if you are a Paul Verhoeven fan and you see multiple movies of his, you do get the idea that, okay, his thing is that he inhabits and subverts genre at the same time, which is amazing, and no one else has done it, which is what makes him so unique. So, and yeah, and I think if I do talk to Carl, we probably won't talk the whole time about Starship Troopers because I haven't read the book, and I don't think like. And at the end of the day, I think our disagreement is really just about the movie versus the book. And the part of the movie that makes it almost impossible to disagree that it's satire is those like interstitial commercials of like, "Would you like to know more?" Where there's like little kids who are like stepping on bugs, going, "Any bug is the only good bug is a dead bug." Like that's where he's showing his cards. So
it's kind of like those commercials in the RoboCop movies, or at least the first RoboCop. Yeah,
yeah, dude, the first RoboCop is so good.
Oh, what do you think about Showgirls? I just watched that relatively recently. that one didn't really work for me. I wasn't really.
Yeah,
that's definitely not my favorite Verhoeven film.
Yeah, if it was trying to be a satire, I don't know. People who like swear up and down that it's a satire, I think maybe giving it too much credit.
Yeah, like to me, I just prefer Paul Verhoeven's science fiction films, like Starship Troopers and Total Recall and RoboCop, and Hollow Man isn't bad too, but that seems like way less of a satire than those other ones. And I think Total Recall even kind of seems like less satirical than RoboCop and Starship Troopers to me.
I think, when was the last time you saw it? You should rewatch it, because there's like a really interesting part at the beginning where like similar to the whole RoboCop aesthetic, where like horrible violence is happening and like it's so over the top that it kind of becomes satirical. But like in the opening scene of Total Recall, Schwarzenegger is like having coffee and breakfast, and in the background there's news about like horrible things happening. Like I think like the news even says something like 40% of the country's population was decimated today, and it's just like he's just pouring his coffee like nothing is happening. So I think that critical edge is still there, but yeah, I mean that's what makes Paul Verhoeven such an enigma, is that it's very subtle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man, I would love to talk to you again about Slavoj Žižek and or like any movies or anything like that. I actually do movie chats with a few of my friends on here sometimes, so you're more than welcome to join any of those if you want to. The next one we were going to talk about is Blade. If you'd be interested in that.
Wesley Snipes.
Yeah,
I
for
love
sure.
the shit out of them. I saw that movie like 4 times in theaters.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
I haven't seen it in a while, but yeah, let's keep in touch, man. I mean, really, everything is about like just the time difference, because it's a real bitch. But thank you for staying up. What is it, like 4 a.m. there now?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, dude. No problem, right, man. Well, I'm super excited about this conversation. But
yeah, me too. Well, my last question: what was your assumption of my opinions on these things, and how did it stack up to the reality of this conversation?
Well, I would say your opinions are kind of what I predicted, in that it's like it seemed to me like our perspectives are kind of similar, although I think we have maybe disagreements about some of the I guess our main disagreement is just about like how much of a good or bad thing it is that public intellectuals are going around and talking about this stuff. And maybe you think it's a bit of a better thing than I do, but what's more interesting to me is like the actual abstract philosophical ideas anyway. So
I hear you. Yeah, I mean, that's a disagreement. And again, like, I don't think that Lindsay is doing God's work. I don't look at him as like, this is what we need to be doing, this is how we fix this. That's not really what I think. So anyway, yeah, until next time, dude. Thanks for reaching out, and yeah, let's do it again soon.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll just say the stuff I like to say at the end here. So thanks to everyone for watching. Subscribe, check out Jared's channel, Jared Bauer. It's his new channel, which is really awesome too. You guys did a really cool you and Ryan from Wisecrack also did a really cool tier list ranking of different directors on both your channels and his, which I highly recommend and I think is really cool. And yeah, no problem. And yeah, click that bell to be notified when I come out with new videos. And give me money on Patreon if you want to. I always put the link in the description of the video. And like I always like to say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. And investigate interesting ideas, even if they scare you. Usually boogeyman ideas do not turn out to be as scary as they are purported to be. And also try to not demonize people and disagree with them without declaring them to be evil or some shit like that. And yeah, I think that's about all I have to say. So yeah, anything else you want to say there before we end it?
No, that was beautiful. I got nothing, man. Rock and roll.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. And yeah, I hope to talk to you again. and adios until next time, everyone.